Everyone, Brian here, Fanboy Factor. Today I'm talking with writer Joe Casey. Hey, Joe, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it.
We're glad to be here.
So, for those who don't know, Joe's been writing comics for, geez, how many years now? Long time.
20, something, I don't know, something like that. Yeah. Long time.
Long time. And you have a new book coming out, which is a new actual Jonny Quest book coming from Dynamite Comics. There was a Free Comic Book Day zero issue, and I did get a chance to read that. It was excellent. And
Oh, thanks.
I now the series that comes out in August, correct?
Yes.
What attracted you to, wanting to write Johnny Quest? I mean, I grew up on the reruns, huge fan. I don't think until the actual Batman adventures we saw cartoons that action and violent for a very long time. So it
Sure.
was
Yeah.
it definitely was groundbreaking for its time. What was the appeal for you?
Well, I mean, they asked me. That's the first thing. And I watched the show when I was a kid too. It was on Saturday mornings for as long as I can remember on, either ABC, NBC, or CBS back when there was only three networks.
Yep.
And it was just kind of ubiquitous. What I didn't know then, which I know now, is that they only produced one season of it back in '64.
Yep.
And ever since then, or at least in the '70s and the early '80s, the networks would just license it every couple of years. And so we just kind of make the rounds of the three networks. So it was always on. Um, and then there was a comic book series in the 1980s published by Comico,
Yep.
which
Remember that.
I was really into at the time, and that was my more in-depth, uh, you know, take on Jonny Quest was that series.
Right.
But both I recommend them both to anybody.
Very cool. It's interesting to see Dynamite kind of having the rights, seeing it's Warner property, I think. But
Well, they have all
yeah,
the Hanna-Barbera stuff. I think that's
that's
that's the
the
connection. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And Dynamite's on a roll with this, licensed IP stuff. Thundercats and Space Ghost is doing well, and hopefully Jonny Quest will carry on that tradition. We're fingers crossed.
You definitely did a great job setting it up. I don't want to give anything away for people who haven't read it, but it was a really nice setup. I can't wait to see where it goes. I do have to kind of ask the question, and I don't want to like spoilers, but are we going to see any of the other characters that we saw from the cartoon, like Dr. Zinn, Jezebel Jade, those possibly? I know you're involved with one story. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, I can say yes to that question. I can answer yes. They're all in there. I mean, I wouldn't do this series if I couldn't play with all the toys. How we play with them is maybe a bit different than you've seen in the before. But if you are a fan of Jonny Quest and you're familiar with the mythology, I think you'll be very happy we included all the important stuff in our series. Just hopefully in an original way.
It was definitely a fresh take, and yet, I did feel you had your hand in the old stuff, but it was definitely a fresh take on what you started so far, and I really can't wait to see where it goes. It was very compelling. I couldn't stop. I had to read it twice to be honest with you. I just really found it interesting.
Well, I was for that free comic book day story, the most important thing, aside from the general setup of the series, was getting the voices of the characters right. And once I felt like I locked in to really, they sound like the cartoon characters to me.
Right.
The voices and the cadence and the turns of phrase that they use and how they relate to each other. So once I keyed into that, I knew we were off and running because that was the most important thing to me is that I wanted for people who were really familiar with the cartoon, I wanted this to be right there in lockstep with what they remember when they read the comic, that they hear the right voices in their head. And So far, so good. It feels like it to me anyway.
It definitely did. I definitely felt like it was, was with one of those Saturday cartoons. I heard all the voices in my head when I was reading it.
Perfect.
I mean, it's like you nailed down, especially that surrogate father relationship with Race and Johnny, and yet the best friends between Dr. Quest and Race, and then you got Haji, and it was, talking a little modern, but still that mysticism about it. You really captured everything. Even Bandit is you nailed Bandit, and that's kind of it's gonna be a hard thing to do for just a regular animal.
Yeah, Sebastian and I joke together and separately that part of the challenge of Johnny Quest is always remembering to keep Bandit in there somewhere, whether I'm writing a bit for him to do or that Sebastian has to just remember to put him in the panel, just to keep drawing him in there. And I think from what I know about the history of the cartoon, Doug Wildey was not crazy about having a cute little dog in there for sight gags and everything, but he's there, so we make the most of it.
A great job. It's like you said, you really did find you had the proper voice for every character, and I did hear everything in my head as I was reading it. It was like being back at that time watching these shows again.
Thank God. Mission accomplished then. I'm happy to hear that.
So, I mean, you were obviously, as you said, a huge, a big fan of Johnny Quest growing up. I mean, it's amazing the staying power of the cartoon, even though it's really not. I don't know if it's really playing any place these days, but there's
On
still.
TV. It's free
It
on
is.
TV. Yeah,
Check it
the
out.
whole first season.
It's it's an amazing show. Like it's definitely was ahead of its time. And it took a long time to get kind of back to that type of, not red laser, blue razor, people jumping out of exploding vehicles and type of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I'll never, watching people actually get shot, eaten by animals. It
Yeah.
was,
For me, the show also, the legitimacy of the show is that it has real comic book pedigree. That
yeah,
was created by Doug Wildey, that Alex Toth did designs for it. It was the show above all others, and like probably until, like you say, until the Batman show,
yeah,
Batman animated series, that really looked like a comic book to me. That really
right,
looked comic book art animated. I think it's light years beyond what came after with like stuff like the Super Friends and
yeah,
Spider Amazing Friends. Those were fine, but Johnny Quest looked like comic book art.
yeah. It
And
really did.
that set it apart for me personally because I'm a big comic book fan.
I totally agree with you. Did it really was, like you said, the Toth design is just like right there. It just nails it. I mean, it's yes, some of the first season of Super Friends did have the Toth designs, but it wasn't the same thing. It was watered down version of the heroes we kind of grew up with. And
Well,
while Johnny Quest was what comic books really are, it's just kind of like no, I don't want to say no filter, but something along the lines of that.
well, it was a prime time show. People also forget it was a prime time show. So that had whatever the standards and practices were at the time did not
Right.
quite apply as they would to a Saturday morning cartoon, which I always wondered if the show in the 70s and the 80s, when it was on Saturday mornings, if it kept switching networks because people would, parents would get upset that it was maybe too violent or, too whatever for their little kids to watch. So it would get run off that network, and then a year later would show up on another network, do its run, get run off of that one. I don't know. I don't have any evidence of that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of it.
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, I remember in mid '80s when all of a sudden they started censoring Warner, Bugs
Oh
Bunny,
yeah,
Looney Tunes. It was just like waiting for the rock to fall on the coyote, and they cut the scene, and it's just like, what?
I
It's
remember that. I couldn't
dark
believe
time.
it. I couldn't believe it.
It, it was a
They
dark
turned
time for
6 minute cartoons
cartoons.
into 3.5 minute cartoons.
But you definitely got the right tone for the book. I seriously looking forward to it. Do you now? Is it the first week of August? Is it supposed to hit?
I
Do
think so,
you,
yeah. First or second week. It's early August. Yeah.
and how's it working with your which as a collaboration? How's it working out?
Sebastian is I can't imagine doing this book without him. We were lucky to find him. We were lucky he agreed to do it. He's got he's dialed in so perfectly on that sort of Jonny Quest look
Right,
without aping Doug Wildey or Alex Toth. He's found his own style, but you look at it and it immediately evokes the cartoon in the best way.
right.
And we're having a blast. We just figured out what the second arc is going to be. The first arc is 5 issues, and then we're going to go beyond that with something that is going to be amazing. Just got approved, and we're very excited.
Dynamite does seem to be a great company. A lot of different licenses they've had over the years, and some amazing stuff. It's great that they have the Hanna-Barbera stuff. I did read the Space Ghost, and that, I was an excellent read. I thought, that had the right tone too.
Yeah,
But it's just definitely, like you said, just they're they're emulating the cartoons that I grew up on, but they were always kind of comic books to begin with. So
yeah,
it's a natural progression. I can't wait to see what they come up with next.
yeah. I mean, I've heard more than rumors, but I mean, Nick Barucci's no moron. If he finds sees a path to success, he will stay on that path for as long as he can stay on it. So I think it's guaranteed there's going to be more similar material to come. I mean, there's a lot of those licenses that still haven't been tapped, those Hanna-Barbera licenses, and Warner Brothers too. I mean, they seem to have a pretty good relationship, so I think it's going to continue.
Still a huge demand for them. I mean, when DC did do that Future Quest, it did. There was a lot of I'm not too sure the actual sales, but a lot of people loved it. It's just to see all those characters again. It was just that they grew up with. It was just a lot of great talk around it. So having Johnny back again I'm excited. I can't wait.
One thing about these characters I found going back to like the Future Quest stuff and the series from the 80s, it always attracts really good creatives. Attracts great writers, great artists. So it's always quality material. There's,
Right.
sales notwithstanding, I think, guys like me like this material and want to work on it. So we get excited and we bring that excitement to the project. The readers can sense that excitement and it goes from there. So I think Dynamite seems to have cracked the code on how to sell the material, how to get it out there in pretty big numbers. So maybe
Right.
it's finally the right marriage between publisher and material, and more people will be reading this stuff, and that's great.
Gotta agree with you there. They definitely had cracked the code on something.
Yeah,
The amount of stuff, like I said, the different properties they've had over the years, and they've been pretty amazing, and get some high, like yourself and other, high-end writers and artists to work on these titles. I mean, years ago they had a Shadow, Green Hornet, pretty much all the pulp heroes, and was done by Alex Ross. I mean, you can get much crazier than that. It's just,
yeah, amazing.
but you definitely nailed it, man. You have. you know these characters inside and out, and it reads like that. And it's like I said, I can't. I'm trying not to give anything away, but I just can't wait to see where you're going with it. It was exciting. It was um, the tonal, the voices were definitely there. It was amazing.
Now, did they send you issue one? Have you read issue one yet?
I have not.
Oh,
I
okay.
did not get a copy yet. I've only
Okay.
read the, yeah, it's still a little early for them. I will be probably getting one within a couple weeks, but where they,
Oh, good. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But I did enjoy, like I said, issue zero from the free comic book day. That was, it gave me a little taste, and now I want more. So can't wait.
Well, there's much more coming. I mean, the best thing about getting into the characters and feeling like you've got them down, which at this point I feel like I do, is at that point then you can go deeper. Because I think if this series was just some sort of recapitulation of the cartoon show and nothing more, that would get old pretty
Right,
quick. So we make sure from the first issue that we start to peel the layers of some of those characters and maybe show them in a light that they haven't been seen in before. I think that the readership is, probably old enough to handle. It's not a deconstruction; it's just a deeper dive into the characters.
right. I can see where you're
I
going
think
with
that's
that.
what. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what everybody wants from these things. They don't want. They want it to evoke the cartoon. They want to go deeper than the cartoon. So that's what
Right.
we tried.
Yeah, I can see that. It's definitely a better way to go than trying to, restart the wheel at least, kind of
Well,
it's
I will say the one thing that I did have to clear, not clear, but when I first got the gig, I got with the editor. I said, okay, look, what can Johnny not do? Or what can he do? Can he fire a gun? Can he drive a car? I just want to get through all the things that, Warner Brothers would let us do. And of
right,
course it came back, no, he can't fire a gun. No, he can't drive a car. He's 12 years old or whatever. Okay, okay. But I had to ask.
right,
Because if I'd have been able to slip in Jonny Quest firing a gun, you better believe I would have done that because that's the coolest, right? But the parameters were set. We're working with the parameters, but given those parameters, there's still a lot of great action and some cool things that go on in the book.
definitely. And it's still nice to see Johnny kind of getting himself in trouble in a way. So,
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
and Ray's always there to bail him out. So at least there's a little constance in the universe, so can't complain
yes,
about that.
exactly. That's right. That's right.
Uh, no, Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me briefly.
Sure.
Can't wait. Again, everyone, that's Jonny Quest coming out, I believe the first week of August from Dynamite Comics. I will have a link down below with the exact date and where you can check it out online. And thank you very much, Joe. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Brian. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. Bye now.